Hello and welcome to today's story time. And so today I'm gonna be talking about um, a miscarriage that I had in 2016. So over 10 years ago. And I just have felt inspired to talk about it on a video, and so this is my first time sharing my experience on a YouTube video. And so grab a drink, maybe a tea or water. I'm just drinking water in this cup right here. And yeah, so let's go back a little over 10 years ago. So February of 2016 is when I found out I was pregnant. At the time, I was in a relationship that the wasn't the healthiest relationship, I can say, and I was very upset when I found out I was pregnant back in February 2016. And okay, so I find out, I cry a lot because I'm feeling a lot of sadness that I'm not in the ideal relationship, or at least not in a healthier relationship with someone that I feel really supported by. So at the time, I did not feel supported by my partner. He was very neglectful in a lot of ways. And so, like I said, when I found out I was pregnant, I was just really scared and upset. And I'm sure there's lots of people out there, lots of women out there that end up feeling scared and upset and totally not ready or prepared. And so I find out, I let myself cry a lot. That was just my reaction. And then I ended up telling my ex the next day, because I tried telling him that night when I found out, and texted him and told him I needed him to come home and there was something very important that I needed to tell him. And no, he ignored my request and did not come home that night. He might have came home like early in the morning or something. But yeah, so that just added to my stress and the sadness. And so it wasn't until the next day that I told him, and he was happy about it. He was happy about it. He had told me before that he wanted children, so it makes sense that he was okay with it, happy about it. So then the shock of the news of being pregnant wears off after a few days, and I start making peace with it. Like, okay, I'm gonna accept this, and this is gonna be my life now, and I'm gonna go ahead and have this baby, keep going with the pregnancy. And so then that part happens, and then soon after, I go and I go into a doctor and get a pregnancy test, just to make sure that I was actually pregnant. And sure enough, yes. And then I think maybe a couple weeks or so pass by, and then I end up getting, let's see, I don't remember exactly the timeline. This all happened within a span of maybe 2 months, from maybe 1 month and a half, from finding out I was pregnant to having the miscarriage. probably, I might have only been, from when I knew that I was pregnant, maybe I was only pregnant for a month of learning about the news that I was pregnant. So it all happened really fast. And so timelines, they kind of blur. It happened over 10 years ago. It was traumatic. So there's all that. And so anyways, I get the pregnancy test done. They tell me, I can't remember exactly what they said, but you know, they estimate how long you've been pregnant and about when is your due date. And then I end up, what ends up happening? I end up, let's just forward on to some weeks later. And so when I first started feeling pain in my, like cramping. Okay, so let's forward. A couple weeks later, I end up having, I have dinner. For dinner, I ended up having Chinese food, and I really thought it was the Chinese food that gave me some of the cramping. And so right after I ate food is when I felt cramping. Then I think I started bleeding a little bit, and that's why I went to the emergency room. And so I go to the emergency room, and you know, the doctor was okay. He said it's very common for women to have miscarriages, and in his opinion, it's usually more comfortable or at least women have said that it's more comfortable just to have the miscarriage at home, especially if it's early on, like you're only been pregnant for a little while. And so that was really sad. You know, when I went, it happened to be a full moon too, and I remember I was in the ER. It was a full moon, super busy. I get in there, the doctor, like I said, he was okay, in the sense of how he treated me, and like I said, he just said miscarriages are common. My ex-boyfriend was there with me, and then my sister ended up coming, and then at one point I just like start crying, like just crying a lot. And I remember my sister was there when I was like crying a lot. She was right in front of me, and I don't know if she just didn't want to see me cry. I think it's hard for her, maybe. Let's just give her that benefit of the doubt. Let's give her that. But I remember her asking me like why I was crying, and I'm thinking like, okay, by then she's already had 2 children. She's never had a miscarriage, right? Maybe she just didn't understand. I think she was just really uncomfortable with me expressing my sadness and my emotions. And in that moment, I was just like, it's like, what? It's like I should be able to just cry, just totally cry. This is a serious thing, right? So, and I did. I cried. And then, so that was frustrating, right? Having to explain to my sister that it's normal that I'm crying. Anyways, so after that, and I can't remember if this happened before or after. Might have happened after. So, you know, I go home, and I actually think that when I was in, okay, so I might have got the timeline confused. So when I think that time was the second time I was in the ER. So when I was out of town visiting my ex's family, parents, And that's where I started bleeding. And I don't remember if I felt any cramping or anything, but I knew, you know, when you're pregnant, you're not supposed to bleed, right? And so I went to the ER in the town that I was in first, and I was super sad, of course, and scared. And I remember the doctor there was really compassionate. I could see it in his eyes. I could see that there was caring in his eyes, and you know, and I think they might have said the same thing, like, you might be having a miscarriage, you might miscarry, miscarriages are normal, or yeah, normal, or and they happen often in women. So so yeah, so that happened then. And then um and then a few days, I think, passed, maybe even like a week, and then I had to visit the ER again the second time. And so, you know, they told me just to go home and like take it easy, and you know, it might be because I'm gonna have a miscarriage, and the most comfortable place is at home, basically, or can be for a woman to be in her own home, which I understand. And so I did. I went home, and then there were tests that had been done at the first hospital that I was at, and there was another appointment that I had a couple other appointments that I had had with the doctor, and where they did an ultrasound, and they couldn't hear the baby's heartbeat. And when I initially went in and to get a pregnancy test the first time I went in, they had said I was they might have said like I was a month pregnant, something like that, right? And then a couple weeks later, when I'm having certain difficulties, they end up saying, I think they ended up saying I might have been like a month pregnant as well. So weeks had passed by, a few weeks had passed by, and they were saying basically that I had been pregnant for around the same amount of time. So the timelines weren't adding up. And then when, you know, you go into the appointment to see if they can hear a heartbeat, they couldn't hear a heartbeat. And so basically, the baby wasn't growing correctly, right? And so that was really hard to hear. Super hard, super scary. You don't want to hear that, right? When you're pregnant. And so it was a very sad time for me. Like I said, that all happened maybe within a month and a half span. And so then let's see. So, you know, I know that the baby's not growing correctly, not growing at a healthy rate. They can't hear the heartbeat. I already went to the ER twice. And I remember talking to one of my friends, and she was super into spirituality, just like I am. And she told me I told her what was happening, and she was praying for me. And she told me to talk to the soul of the baby and to tell the baby that I'm going to be okay. That I will be okay. And so, no matter, like, that I will be okay if the baby decides to leave, the soul decides to leave. And so I end up praying, So it was kind of miraculous the way it happened. It was the first time in my life that I felt like I truly surrendered. I like let go and surrendered. I prayed in my room. I remember laying down and praying and just having a moment, kind of like meditating and talking to the soul of the baby, and telling the baby, you know, if you're not gonna have a, what was the words I used? Let me think. It's a little bit hard to remember all the words because it happened so long ago, right? And it is it still feels like emotional, even though I've done lots of healing on it. And so I told the soul of the baby that I was going to be okay, that if he was going to be born with not a high quality of life because of disabilities that he may end up having, I told him it's okay for you to go. And he did. He did. So within like an hour maybe later, or 2 hours later, I miscarried. After I said the prayer, talked to the baby, said I was going to be okay, Mama's going to be okay, you can depart. And because I already had been bleeding and cramping, it already seemed like the miscarriage was going to happen anyways. And like I said, it was the first time that I felt like I really let go and surrendered. And just like let go to like, okay, this is happening. This may happen. I'm just gonna let go. And yeah. And the reason I say he is because when I go back a couple weeks before the scare with the whole miscarriage thing, I was getting an acupuncture treatment, and I had this experience in the acupuncture where I was kind of in a meditative state, which makes sense. With acupuncture, a lot of times I would get really relaxed and in this kind of meditative state. So in this one acupuncture treatment that I had, I swear that I heard the name just in my mind. When I asked the baby what name he wanted to be called, he said Owen. And I also think that I asked, is it a male or female? And he said it was a boy. He was a boy. And yeah, so I really remember him telling me his name. He actually said a different name first, and I said, oh, I don't really care for that name. Can you choose another one? And he said Owen. The second name he said was Owen. So that was pretty special. Yeah. And so, okay. So that's like a bittersweet moment. And then, that was a sweet moment. And then go back to when I had the miscarriage. So when I had the miscarriage, it was the most painful thing I've ever gone through, emotionally and physically and mentally. I literally felt contractions. They were contractions that I had, and it was super painful, and it was probably a couple hours of a process. And I won't go into detail, like visual details anyways. My ex-boyfriend, for all the things that he lacked in and was not a good boyfriend, not a great boyfriend, not a great partner, he stepped up to the plate. He happened to be there when I was having the miscarriage, and he went in with me into the bathroom, me and him, and he was with me the whole time, holding my hand. So he was super supportive in that moment. So I do feel gratitude that he stepped up to the plate, that he at least was there for me in that moment, because it was one of the hardest moments of my life that I've experienced. And yeah, and so and the reason, my intention for talking about this miscarriage was just to let you know, let people out there know, because I know it happens statistically. Supposedly it happens pretty often. I can't remember the statistics, if it was 1 out of 3 women may experience a miscarriage or 1 out of 4. I can't remember. So I just wanted to share my story. So if anyone's going through a miscarriage or has gone through a miscarriage and is having a really hard time, just to know that you're not alone. You're not alone. And sending you so much love, so much light. And, you know, even though this was, like I said, one of the hardest experiences I've ever experienced, right? Losing a child like that. I feel blessed that things turned out that way, even though they were hard. And the reason is because the person I was with, it wasn't a healthy relationship. It was pretty unhealthy, and I would have continued to be unhappy in my partnership relationship probably. And there was just so much unhealthy things, unhealthy behaviors from my ex. And so I'm glad I'm not linked to him, I guess. If I had a child, right, if I would have had the child and not had the miscarriage, then I'd still be linked to him more so for my whole life probably, and would have had to seen him over the years. So in that sense, I'm like, okay. And also I was willing to just accept whatever, in the sense of like, if I was gonna, you know, I ended up being pregnant, and I was like, okay, well, this is hard, but this is my life now. So I was willing to go through the whole process of, you know, accepting a child into my life and going through the whole process. And it wasn't written in the stars for me, which is fine. And anyways, I just wanted to share this story, and I hope it helps in some way. It was kind of hard for me to share about, and I've been wanting to. I have felt inspired to share real stories and be truly authentic, just myself, just be myself, just talk, and also just share a video where it's not overproduced or even really edited, right? Me, I'm here. I hope you can feel a connection with me, and just being a human, you know, just sharing my human experiences. I guess I'm just lifting this up so you can see the cute butterflies. You see that? Cute. Anyways, many blessings to everyone, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will continue to make videos on my life experiences. All right. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your day. or night, wherever you are in the world.